Hello, I am Joshua P. Warren, and this is Joshua P. Warren Daily. And guess what? A guy who listens to this show, who is a big fan of the podcast, built a UFO attractor, a UFO antenna. And he turned it on, then 10 minutes later went outside, and guess what? Something appeared over his house, and he got it on video and sent it to me. Now, I'm going to tell you what he did, how he made this device, and I'm going to describe the video footage to you and tell you how you can go and watch it easily for free. But I want you to really ask yourself, would you like to have that ability? I imagine that you would, to attract a UFO, because you listen to this podcast. I can see why that you don't want to be invaded and abducted by aliens, but wouldn't that be cool if you could just invite all your friends over for a beer and say, check this shit out, turn the knob, and you got your own little private UFO show there? I'm going to tell you what he did. But here's what makes this even freakier for me. The same day he contacted me and sent me this footage, I was also contacted by another guy who listens to this podcast and is a big fan of the program. He is a paranormal investigator. He's a friend here in Las Vegas, and he sent me footage from inside an abandoned house that was captured on a surveillance camera. And this is one of those pieces of footage that I professionally call a what the fuck film. Okay, what the fuck. And listen, any paranormal investigator out there who is truly worth his or her weight in salt has at least one manila folder, if not an entire drawer in a filing cabinet, which is the what the fuck file. And these are things that just don't fit naturally, conveniently, shall we say, into any, typical category like ghosts or UFOs or cryptids or psychic phenomena or angels or demons. We always try to divide and categorize and label things. Sometimes you get things that just don't neatly fit, and those are the things that go into the WTF what the fuck compartment. So this is one of those pieces of video footage. I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm also going to tell you how you can see it easily and for free. I will, however, tell you right up front that they are in different places. They are not both viewable at the same place. So that's something to look forward to, and I think it also says something bigger about this acceleration, this combustion that's happening right now. The world is changing dramatically, and not surprisingly, paranormal phenomena is peaking all over the place. But before I get into those particular stories, the UFO stuff right now is really hot because, for example, a lot of people have been out over the past month or whatever looking at the sky to see this comet. And anytime there is a comet or a meteor shower or something like that that inspires people to look at the sky, well, you get this whole new shower of UFO reports coming in. And I've been getting reports from here in Las Vegas and a lot of other places. And that's because, especially nowadays, people have a tendency to keep, the nose stuck in the phone, right? You're just always looking at your screen. And even if you're looking at your screen, especially at night, it messes up your eyes. And so when you look up at the sky, you may or may not be able to see things as well as you could. So there's a double-edged sword we have with these smartphones. The bad part is having your attention focused all the time on a smartphone, it takes your attention away from the skies. But when you do capture something on the smartphone that's in the sky, well, now you can easily spread it and share it with everybody. So there's a lot of UFO stuff going on right now, and I saw something really interesting on television the other day, and I think I can use your help. I know I have a vast enough audience all over the world here that somebody might know the answer to a question I'm going to pose to you right now. There is this show that Lauren and I really like that is on the History Channel here in the U.S., and it just entered its second season. It's called Unidentified: Inside America's UFO Investigation. And this show is hosted by Luis Elizondo, who was in charge of the Pentagon's ATIP program, looking into a lot of these military reports of UFOs. And of course, he's involved with the Stars Academy and all that. And so he's a really good host, and he just travels all around, and he has a small dedicated team, and they're really good. And this is what makes this show special. They're really good at inspiring military folks to go on camera and tell about their experiences. And I'm talking even active duty military personnel, which that's almost unheard of. And over the decades, a number of military people have spoken out. I mean, Dr. Stephen Greer, he did a thing at, I guess it was the National Press Club a long time ago, in which he got some of these military people to come out. But all they're doing is telling their stories. Well, nowadays you have some of these younger people who are coming out and talking about what they've seen, who can say, look, we have had a big upgrade in our technology, and so we have readings on these things that like the speed they're going, the temperature, the maneuverability, and that's something to keep in mind, that people send me UFO footage every day, and I watch as much of it as I can, and usually it's just like somebody saw something weird in the sky, and it could be anything that just looks weird, and you go, yep, that was weird, and then that's the end of the video, and that's all you have. What makes this show Unidentified special is that these military personnel, they are up there in the air often, and we're talking about pilots, obviously, and they're flying around, and when they see these things, I mean, they get frequently a very up close and personal experience where they are able to judge the propulsion systems, the maneuverability, the speed, but also they've got recordings of these things on radar showing this is something physical. This is not like some pilot who's hallucinating here. And also that these things are, well, they're videotaped. I mean, that's why there have been some videos released. So I mean, it's almost gotten to the point where like the technology now is giving some of these military people the confidence to come out and talk, because they're like, look, you can say I'm crazy all day long if you want to, but I got a recording here. So how do you explain that? So anyway, it's a good show, Unidentified: Inside America's UFO Investigation, on the History Channel. I have no involvement whatsoever with that show, by the way. But I was watching Season 2, Episode 2 the other night with Lauren, which is the most recent episode. It's called The Triangle Mystery. And they were focusing in particular upon all of these different reports of these giant triangular craft. Usually it's a black triangle. Often you will find a black triangle with like a red light at each corner. And we're talking about the type of triangle that, well, for example, Art Bell and his wife Ramona saw. in Pahrump, Nevada, a long time ago. Obviously Art passed away a few years ago, but I remember Art sitting down on ABC News and telling the story. It ought to be out there somewhere on the internet about seeing this big triangle over Pahrump. And you know what is especially amazing to me is that when I found the so-called time warp outside of Las Vegas on my way to Area 51, a couple years ago, I guess. At that time, it was just a place where I happened to pull off on the side of the road to take a measurement, and then I was astounded later to find that that was the exact spot where a man named Sean Kevin Jason had encountered one of these big triangular craft back in, I believe, 1996. And I got together with Sean Kevin Jason, who had a model of this thing, and he went out there to that site with me, and on camera talked about seeing one of these, triangle craft. So that's the kind of thing they were devoting the show to. So Lauren and I are sitting there watching this, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the show, they popped up an image, and I said, "Oh, Lauren, hit pause, hit pause," because they showed an image that I had never seen before of not a necessarily triangular craft, but something that I saw 11 years ago that I describe as a V-shaped craft. And you've heard me tell this story before, so I won't go into a great deal of detail. But on Monday, February 23rd of 2009, sometime between 9 and 10 p.m. at a pull-off on Davis Dam Road outside Laughlin, Nevada, I saw something that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I was there with 3 friends, Dean Warsing, investigator Dean Warsing, his son Dean Jr., and a friend named Will, and we had night vision goggles, and we saw this huge V shape in the sky that took its time, quietly, slowly moving over us from our position right to left. And it was absolutely eerie. And the thing is, we could only see it through the 3rd generation night vision goggles. It was invisible to the naked eye. And so that's why I've always described it as a V shape, because the only thing that I could see was literally like a big, you know how night vision is, it's green, so it's like a big green V shape that came over our heads and wasn't that high up. And so we have always kicked ourselves because we did not have the ability on that night to take pictures or record video or whatever through the night vision goggles. And so when Lauren and I were watching this unidentified program and they popped up this picture of this big kind of greenish murky looking V shape, or I said, damn, that is the closest thing I've ever seen. This is a photograph or a screen capture of. I said, that is the closest thing I have ever seen to what we saw that night in Laughlin. And so we took pictures of our TV screen. And the funny thing is, they were giving a lot of different information at this point. They were cutting really fast in this TV show. And they said that this was from Texas. And then they just moved on to the next thing. I would like to know more about that. I would like to know, like, when this was taken, where this was taken in Texas, so on and so forth. So I may reach out to the producers of the show, because I produced for this History Channel as well. I was one of the producers for the American Ripper series and all that. But here is what I want to do. I'm going to post this V-shaped screen capture on my Twitter page. In fact, I'm going to make a note of that. Okay, I got it. So if you go to @Joshua P. Warren on Twitter, @Joshua P. Warren, And I hope you'll follow me on Twitter because, why wouldn't you? Um, I want you to look at that. And if any of you out there know anything about how this was captured, this particular still from this show, I'd appreciate it. I have a suspicion that what I was probably looking at was one of these triangular craft, but the only portion that was visible to me through the night vision was the leading edge. And since then, that has made more and more sense because Steve Barone captured video of a triangular craft landing at Nellis Air Force Base in, I think, 2015. And it was almost like it had some of this cloaking material on it, so that if you looked at it from the top or the bottom, you would primarily see, whatever was on the other side. So if you're standing there looking up, you're going to see the stars. It's like it's projecting the stars above it onto the bottom. And I don't know if they're using fiber optics for that or what they may be doing. And I don't know if this is human military technology or alien technology. It's probably some kind of like military technology that's partially based upon alien technology. I really don't know. But I do think that it's interesting that to the naked eye, I couldn't see anything. So it was like, yeah, this is basically invisible. But through the goggles, I could see that leading edge. And there was another portion of that program where they were just kind of blasting through like slides, and they showed some kind of a diagram of a V-shaped looking craft. And again, I don't know where this came from. That's the problem with a lot of these shows. But when I was looking at it, oh man, that's kind of weird. I'm looking at this picture as I talk to you, and I wasn't touching my computer or anything. And all of a sudden, the picture just completely disappeared from my computer. Now I'm getting a little, okay, wait a second. Is it there? Is it there? That was weird. You know what? That has never ever happened to me before when I've been doing a podcast and looking at a picture of something like this, and suddenly it disappeared. But I just retrieved it. Oh boy. Anyway, okay. Let me try to say what I was going to say. In this diagram that they showed on the History Channel. So if any of the men in black or the folks at Area 51 are listening to me as I record this, look, I'm not giving away anything that hasn't been on the History Channel. They have a diagram, and there is an arrow pointed to that leading edge, and it says weak plasma hypersonic boundary layer control, entire leading edge. Now I know that's a mouthful, and some of you are going to like glaze over when you hear that, but some of you will hear it and say, oh, I know exactly what the hell he's talking about. So I'm going to say it one more time. Weak plasma hypersonic boundary layer control, entire leading edge. So in other words, there may be something special about that leading edge of these craft that has, or at least at that time had, more of a tendency to show up through night vision, even though it was invisible to the naked eye. I sent this picture to Dean Worsing, this screen capture. He said, wow. He said, yep, that looks like what we saw in Laughlin. So again, go to my Twitter at Joshua P. Warren. Look at this. If you know any more information about this, all I know so far is that particular shot, again, was from, they said, Texas. Please contact me. Go to joshuapwarren.com, joshuapwarren.com, and let me know what you come up with there, or what information that you have You scroll to the bottom of the homepage and you'll find my email address, contact@joshuapwarren.com. So, I always have a very open mind about looking at UFO footage and ghost footage and stuff like that because, you can't do what I do because you're wanting to, like, get rich or famous or have a stable financial life or anything like most people who do paranormal research are poor outcasts who are questioning this hall of mirrors that we're in. This is not a field that you go into. Like, I've always told Lauren and my friends, like, if I had decided that what I wanted to do in life was hit it rich or whatever, I would have just gone out there and decided to sell cheeseburgers, and I'd be the CEO of McDonald's right now. I mean, I think I could do that. But I chose the field that I've gone into, and I've been self-employed since I was 18 because I actually am interested in this stuff, and I'm so passionately curious, I have to follow my interests. And so when people send me footage or they tell me a story, I actually think about it. So it's like, I think for a lot of people, if you hear a weird story, you listen to it and you go, huh, well, that's definitely weird. And then you just kind of move on with what you have to do. Or if you see something weird on TV, you go, yeah, that's weird. And then you move on with what you have. I get these weird stories, and I'm telling you, some of these stories I could tell you. And those of you who have sat around and had a few drinks with me, you know the stories I can tell, all right? Some of these stories are so bizarre, but I always suspend my disbelief and I say, what if in some way this is true? From some point of view, this is true. And I think about it. And that has really shaped me as a person and my character and, my personality, that I have actually not just heard weird things, I think about it. And there are a number of times every year when someone will send me an email with a piece of footage. And the exchange will go something like this. Dear Mr. Warren, I have great respect for you and your work, and I captured this piece of footage that I think is a UFO, and I would be honored to have your opinion on this if you have the time and you don't mind looking at it. Thank you very much. I know you're a busy man. Sincerely, so-and-so. And I go, great. That was a very nice email. Somebody who respects me and my time, right? So then I go and I watch the video of this UFO. And I go, yeah, that's an airplane for sure. There's a green light here. There's a red light there. There's a little strobe here. I mean, like, so then I write, and so I feel good, like, yeah, I solved the mystery, I guess. So then I write back and I say, well, it turns out you have got footage of an airplane. It's from an odd angle, so I can see why this would make it look a little, unusual. But yeah, this is, in my opinion, you have an airplane here. And then they write back and say, fuck you! Fuck you! I thought you were some great paranormal investigator. You're supposed to be the paranormal guy. Sure, you can't see that this is a UFO? You can't see how amazing this is? I can't believe I wasted my time sending this to you. I could go on here. All right. Now, granted, I totally get the humor of the situation, and hopefully you're chuckling a little bit yourself at this point. But this is the sort of thing that I I actually deal with on a very frequent basis. And I tell people, like, if it means anything to you, I have been studying this stuff the vast majority of my life. I don't know how often you've gotten out there at night with 10 different types of cameras on 10 different types of settings, and you have photographed and videotaped airplanes and helicopters and satellites and raindrops and various types of bugs and fog and mist and snow and dust. I've done that. I go out and and if you're not happy with my opinion, well, you could also just be like, well, thank you very much. You don't have to jump straight to the fuck you. But anyway, I tell you this so that you understand how seriously that I do look at pieces of footage when they come in. And I'll say it again. I've said it many times before. I read everything that gets sent to me. I do not have the time physically. It would be impossible for me to do the things that I do and also reply to everyone. So please don't get your feelings hurt if you don't get a reply. But I do read them all. So this piece of footage I'm about to tell you about, I find interesting. And this comes to me from the guy I mentioned at the top of the show, who is a big fan of the show, and he is out there. He's doing his own experiments, he's doing his own investigations, and he keeps me updated on what he's doing. And he has sent me stuff in the past where I've said, well, yeah, you have something flying around here, but it's maybe 10 years ago this would have been something more interesting, but now we have all these drones and we have the Starlink satellites and all. And he didn't write me back all mean. He was like, okay, cool. He gets it. And that's what I respect, people who realize, like, I'm not trying to play some game to see who's the bigger, expert here. And a lot of these so-called paranormal people have that ego deal going on, which is completely unwarranted and foolish. That was just their avenue to whatever they thought whatever they thought would bring some celebrity, which makes me that tickles me. So anyway, so this guy, his name is Jason, and he lives in Colorado. And I have brought him up on the show before because he has captured some other stuff that's been pretty interesting in the past. So here is the story behind Jason creating a UFO attractor or UFO antenna. He's very creative, and he thought this up, and I wouldn't have thought this up. Okay, so Jason, he's into all kinds of paranormal stuff, but mainly UFOs. And he also has some night vision goggles, and he's able to record through them. So he goes out there a lot and records the sky. And he is one of the lucky people who purchased one of the golden ratio antenna pendants that I made available earlier this year. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the golden ratio is this very special type of equation. I don't know if you call it an equation, a formula. Well, it's it's a special relationship between spaces, I guess you could say, that can be condensed into physical form, and whether it's artistic or the stability of something that's architectural, like the Parthenon. You can look up the golden ratio on your own. 1 to what is it, 6.18? I can't remember what it is, but anyway, just look it up on your own. I think it's 1 to 6.18. So I came up with the idea to take this pendant that I'd made for myself that has the golden ratio embodied in this design that I loved and make it available to others who might want it for 1 week. So for 7 days, I said, I'm going to take orders for this golden ratio antenna pendant. And the idea behind being near the golden ratio as an antenna is that it literally sort of pulls in harmonious energy. That's the concept. And a lot of people got one, but when that 7 day period was over, I stopped it and I said, okay, that was a one-time thing. And then I took the orders and I closed the account and shipped them out. And I hope everybody who ordered one has received it by now. If not, there may be a shipping problem, especially if you're in another country. Who knows what's going on with customs. But he bought one of these golden ratio antenna pendants. And he thought, what if I use this as a literal antenna? A literal antenna. So listen to what Jason did. Jason got a walkie-talkie, and he took that golden ratio antenna pendant and he hooked it to the antenna of the walkie-talkie. Then, of course, he turned on the walkie-talkie and he put a rubber band on it that would hold down the transmit button so that this thing is constantly sending radio waves. So basically what he's doing at this point is saying the golden ratio antenna is at this point going to be a transmitter in this instance, because the device is going to be sending radio waves that are going to pass through the golden ratio antenna out into space. If you're new to the podcast, this may be a little confusing to you, but if not, then you should understand exactly what I'm talking about. He basically hooks this pendant to the antenna. It's by the way, the pendant is conductive because the whole thing is plated in gold. So he's got that sitting there, sending out this radio signal, this RF signal out into the sky around his property through this pendant. Then he puts that walkie-talkie next to a speaker. Just so happens that this particular speaker is shaped like a flying saucer, which certainly doesn't hurt, I'm sure, if you're trying to attract a flying saucer. So he puts that next to the speaker, and that speaker is, like so many these days, a Bluetooth speaker. And so through that speaker, he plays two different things. I'm not sure if he played them simultaneously or he alternated or what he did, to be honest with you. But the two things he was playing through that speaker were A, the tone that was created from the picture of a crop circle from my Paracymatics 2.0 project. And so that is freely available to anybody. I'm just confirming this. I just sat down in front of my computer. If you go right now to joshuapwarren.com and you just scroll down on the home page, you'll see some Paracymatics sigils, symbols. And at the bottom, or at least below those, there's a link that says, for a complete list of new sigils, click here. It's an update. And when you click there, first off, you have this whole section of the original Paracymatics sigils. But then there is a second section called Paracymatics 2.0, which is where I took pictures of things and turned them into sound. Because paracymatics was based upon turning sound into pictures, and Paracymatics 2.0 was based upon turning pictures into sound. And so I have a picture here of an authentic crop circle from England, and I've played this for you on this podcast before. So he took that tone that I was able to extract. And again, if you want to access this, go to joshuapwarren.com, scroll down the homepage, and you'll see the paracymatics section. He was able to access that, and he was able to. Well, I just realized I need to go back and give you a report on an email I got. Anyway, he was able to go back and get that tone, play that tone through his flying saucer speaker, as well as some of the tones that Stephen Greer has said would attract the visitors peacefully through his CE5, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I did a podcast a while back where I was talking about how that Dr. Stephen Greer says that if you want to go out and meditate and try to attract some of these beings, there is a meditation where you sit there and you close your eyes and you relax and you breathe and you say Om Nama, Om Nama, Om Nama, Om Nama. And you can put that in any key that you want. You know, your voice doesn't have to be particularly deep or high. Om Nama, Om Nama. So he had this speaker in some way playing that and maybe some other tones that Stephen Greer's put out that I'm not aware of, and the tone from the crop circle that I got through Paracymatics 2.0 next to a walkie-talkie that is projecting a frequency through the true golden ratio antenna pendant. He sets that up. He goes outside. He starts recording through his night vision setup. And after 10 minutes, he sees a light, a moving light in the night sky. Now, if you have done any of this night vision stuff or kept up with it, you know what it is usually like when you go out and you look up at the sky through these night vision goggles and stuff. You have a little light that looks like a star, but it's moving. And 9 times out of 10, it's a satellite. 9 times out of 10, it's a satellite. And 9 times out of 10, when you see a satellite, it will just continue across the sky in a nice, direct, straight line. It's like a star moving in a nice, direct, straight line. And if you've been outside during the what we call the golden window, which is a great period about 1.5 hours after sunset, and you look up on a clear night, you're going to see probably 2 or 3 of these things, these satellites, or it could be just space junk moving around. In this particular case, though, this object, it moves like a star moving. Again, you could just say, oh, that's a satellite. And then it gets to a certain point in the sky, and all of a sudden, boom, it becomes a sunburst. It brightens up, and then it disappears. Now, I know that satellites do have little jets on them that are used to change their trajectory and to keep them at a certain position in orbit. But I have never seen, in my years of going out and looking at the sky with night vision, anything like what he captured. I have seen these little lights dart off in different directions and shoot away and all that, but I've personally never been in the field and seen one that travels at a nice steady rate like that. It kind of goes from the top right to the bottom left, and then all of a sudden, big bright, and it shoots off. And it's almost like it doesn't instantly disappear. It's like there's a moment where you can just sort of see it diminishing as it shoots farther out into outer space. And he gave me permission to post this for you. He had originally put it on his Instagram page, but Jason said that it was okay for me to take it and edit it and, zoom in on it and make it a little bit clearer for you. So here's how you can see this one. If you go to Joshua P. Warren on Twitter, at Joshua P. Warren on Twitter, you will see this video. It lasts less than a minute. In the beginning, and you just blow the screen up as big as you can. In the beginning, just look toward the center, and you'll see the little white dot that's moving, again from the top right to the bottom left, and then you'll see it flash and disappear. And then there's a replay, and in the replay, there's a close-up. It's much, much closer, and you can get a better look at it. So please watch that video and look at those two clips and think about the fact that he got that 10 minutes after he set up this UFO attractor, UFO antenna. Is that a coincidence? Well, guess what? That's just the beginning. That just happened. That just happened. And so he is going to continue. He's going to continue down that trail, down that path, trying to enhance these methods. And again, he's a good researcher. He's very open-minded. He's very creative. And I want you to look at that. And if you have a good, solid opinion on what you think that is, well, it's easy to contact me. You can do so through joshuapwarren.com. Just scroll down to the bottom of the homepage there and let me know what you think. And I mentioned that I just realized I got an interesting email that I need to read to you. I was on Richard Surrett's show, his conspiracy show recently. Richard Surrett, great guy. I've never met him in person, but he's interviewed me a number of times over the years. He also is a guest host on Coast to Coast AM. And Richard, he interviewed me recently about invisibility, and I ended up talking about my experiences and the night that I saw that V-shaped craft there in Laughlin. And I got this email from a guy named Doug who heard that interview. He said, "Hi Joshua, I'm sending you this email while listening to your interview on Richard Surrett's The Conspiracy Show. I have seen the large, silent, slow-moving V-wing craft that distorts the night sky that you described float right over my head at flight level 005. Good to know, finally, that I am not crazy. I know what I saw. I'm not sure if I can give more details, especially the when and the where, because I'm retired United States Air Force. I can tell you it was not stateside. Doug." I don't know what flight level 005 is. Let's see, flight level 005. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I just typed it in, and I'm not going to do research here while you're sitting there like, come on, Josh. Why didn't you look this shit up before you got on your microphone? So anyway, here we are with all this amazing UFO stuff happening. And if you decide that you want to reproduce what Jason in Colorado did, let me know. But definitely go and look at the footage. Again, less than a minute at Joshua P. Warren on Twitter. And thank you very much, Jason, as usual, for sending me that information, for doing the experiment. That's one of the things that I love most about having this podcast, is that we have a community of investigators out there. We're all independent and we're all doing our own thing, but we're finding all these consistencies around the world. I think the paranormal is increasing in general, and a good example of that, is that the day that I was contacted by Jason with this video, I also got an email from a paranormal investigator here in the Las Vegas area who has become a friend of mine as well. His name is Chaz Stumbo. And Chaz Stumbo is Desert Paranormal Research. You know, I'm not sure if that's his thing, or if it's sort of like, you know, there's a team and a board that they all kind of call that. But basically, they do a lot of their work under Desert Paranormal Research. Chaz Stumbo contacts me, and he said, a friend of mine captured this video on a surveillance camera in this abandoned house. What do you think it is? And this is the what the fuck video that I've, been alluding to. And Chaz always sends me good stuff. I mean, he's the guy who provided the video of the stove door, the cast iron pot-bellied stove door, pretty much unlocking and swinging open at the Pioneer Saloon in Good Springs, Nevada. If you haven't seen that footage, it's really interesting. They're there in this old haunted saloon, and he and his buddy say, hey, we're going to leave the room now, do what you want. And they leave the room, and I don't know, 10 seconds, 15 seconds after they leave the room, you hear the handle on the stove go, and it opens. And I mean, it's really creepy. He always sends me good stuff because he is a very talented, intelligent investigator, and he tries to rule out normal things before he jumps to paranormal. And he sent me this video, and okay, first off, let me describe for you what you see in this video. I asked him to upload it to YouTube, please, so that I could share it more easily and all that. So the video that he uploaded is 3 minutes and 52 seconds long, and you should watch the whole thing. I'm not certain where this haunted house is. I don't know if this is around the Las Vegas area. I need to get more information on this. Again, this is all like new stuff that's coming in. But when you hear abandoned house, you think of like the old creaky Halloween house. No, this just looks like a pretty modern house, but it's just abandoned. But it does have a nice security system inside. And what you see when the video starts, and of course it's kind of that night vision look, because obviously the lighting's low in there. There's probably no electricity or nothing. Certainly nothing's turned on. What you see is mainly focused on the upper left-hand corner of the screen. and also in front of a doorway on the left-hand side. It kind of looks like you're in an empty, I don't know, living room or dining room or whatever. And over to the left-hand side, you see some kind of a doorway. And there are all of these little darts of light that just start appearing and just slowly moving up, down, left, right. It's actually kind of peaceful, to be honest with you, and mesmerizing to watch this video. You should watch the entire 3 minute and 52-second video, and that includes some enhancements and different angles and filters and stuff. And gosh, I think I just gave a pretty good description. Imagine little just pinpoints of light, just sort of peacefully, slowly, just darting here and there. And Chaz is such an objective investigator that he said, first off, he said, I'm trying to figure out a logical explanation. Could these be, like spider webs or cobwebs or something, and the light's just reflecting off of them a certain way, and it's created? No, I'm telling you, it's not that. I have shot a lot of footage of spider webs and cobwebs. If you watch this, you'll see no. These are little pinpoints of energetic light. And there are several of them at any given time, and they're just almost playfully just moving around. It would be so easy for me to say to you, well, these are spirits, or these are fairies. I mean, that would be the easiest thing for me to say to you. I could also say, well, maybe this is some kind of a portal. And what we are seeing are little bits of energy that are just sort of bleeding back and forth between our dimension and some other dimension. I mean, I could say all these kinds of things. And you'd be like, okay. Or you would say, fuck you! Fuck you, Joshua! But hopefully you would say, okay. And whatever these things are, though, I'm really not sure. And I've seen a lot of strange stuff. And I showed this to Lauren, and she wasn't sure what these things were. So it's now in the WTF category for me. And I want you to go look at this, and I want you to give me your opinion, because I'm not saying there might not be some perfectly logical, reasonable, explanation for what's going on here. There may be. Here is how you go look at Chaz's video. The video that he provided that was shot by his colleague. For that one, to watch that for free, very easily, go to joshuapwarren.com. There is no period after the P. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Click the link to the Curiosity Shop, and then scroll down to the bottom. And I don't know how long I'm going to keep this posted here, by the way. So if you go there and it's gone, oh well. But for now, if you go there and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the video there. Click the button, watch it. But if you're going to do it, watch the whole thing, seriously. Set aside 3 minutes and 52 seconds of your life, watch the whole thing, and then you send me a reasonable explanation for what this is. I would like to know what you come up with. Is it possible this is some kind of an electronic malfunction of the surveillance camera? I mean, look, my mind is open. I don't know what to think of this. It's in the WTF category. Go look at joshuapwarren.com, Curiosity Shop, scroll to the bottom, and you'll find the video. And Chaz, thank you once again for contacting me and sending me good stuff, and agreeing to share it with the listeners so that we can get some input on this from people from all over the world. And You can email me, contact@joshuapwarren.com, contact@joshuapwarren.com. And that's one of the things also that's really important to point out. Chaz, he's sent me other things that I haven't shared with you. Um, he's just really doing good research, and I love it when people get out there and they research this stuff because they're genuinely curious and they just want to get it out there because they want to know what is this? What is this? Can we solve this mystery? Speaking of mysteries, one thing that I kind of I kind of wanted to talk about this in my last podcast, but I did not. Was something related to Death Valley. Because my last podcast was all about Death Valley. So I want to tell you something else that's interesting about Death Valley that you may or may not know, and I just didn't get into it last time. Have you heard of the sailing stones phenomenon? The sailing stones. What we're talking about here are these places around the world, usually like some kind of a desert basin, and people go out there and they see that some kind of a rock, often like a huge rock that weighs hundreds of pounds, has been moved hundreds or thousands of feet across the ground, leaving a big old trench, or a rift, I guess you could say. Like, it's like you can see where this thing is moved, but there's no explanation for it. And the most famous place where this happens is actually in Death Valley, at a place called the Racetrack Playa. And I did not go to the Racetrack Playa when I was in Death Valley, because once you are in Death Valley and you're like right there at the visitor center at Furnace Creek, I mean, at that point you're in the heart of the tourist area, so to speak, of Death Valley. If you want to get to the Racetrack Playa, where people have seen these sailing stones, you have to go 83 miles into Death Valley. It takes you 3.5 hours to travel one way. And so, I mean, can you imagine, like, getting to Death Valley already is a huge pain in the ass. And now you're going to get in your SUV and you're going to go out and travel 3.5 hours one way. So we're talking about, we'll say minimum of 7 hours of travel time in and out of the desert, where you don't pass anybody else for 20, 30 minutes. And a good chunk of that, around 30 miles, is on really hardcore dirt roads where there are so many jagged rocks. They say you're almost guaranteed to get at least 1 or 2 flat tires on this trip. And then you have to get out when it's 120 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit and change your tire. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? So that's how remote that the Racetrack Playa is. And in the early 1900s, people really first started recording the fact that these giant rocks, which again, weigh up to hundreds of pounds, were leaving these trails behind them as they're moving across the ground. And this was like a big mystery. Like, you can go back and read dozens of books of like worldwide mysteries, and they have a chapter on how do these stones move. And it turns out that after a lot of dedication and hard work, they say that this was solved about, not that long ago, about 6 years ago, I think, is when they finally declared it was solved. Uh, and of course, it varies a little bit from place to place, but in particular here at Death Valley, says that the Death Valley racetrack playa is dry for almost the entire year and has no vegetation. Now, when dry, its surface is covered with small but firm mud cracks that are shaped like hexagons. You know what a hexagon is? Well, you know what a pentagon is, like we have the Pentagon. That's a shape that has 5 straight sides. And you know what an octagon is, right? It's a shape that has 8 straight sides. Well, a hexagon has 6. So this whole thing is covered with all these cracked mud hexagons. And when it does occasionally rain, it says a shallow cover of water deposits on and between those little hexagons there. And Wikipedia here says the sailing stones are a geological phenomenon found in the racetrack. And it says these stones leave visible tracks as they slide across the playa surface without human or animal intervention. Instead, the rocks move when ice sheets just a few millimeters thick start to melt during periods of light wind, and these thin floating ice panels create an ice shove that moves the rocks at up to 5 meters per minute. So basically, what they're saying is that, yeah, Death Valley's famous for being hot, but it also gets really, really cold the rest of the time. That's what people don't understand about deserts. Like, deserts are really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. And so basically, ice gets a layer of ice gets created there on and throughout those little cracks and crevices, and creates a nice little thin layer, and it produces an ice shove. And if you look up the definition of an ice shove, it says an ice shove is a surge of ice. It's just, okay, well, there you go. It's a surge of ice. So a surge of ice, aided by wind perhaps, is what is pushing those things around. So, you see, that's why I always say, what's now paranormal will someday be normal. So don't think that you're too nutso if you are talking about aliens and UFOs or ghosts or ESP or any of that stuff, because I promise you that it will indeed one day be normal. And the sad thing is, it was actually more fun, wasn't it, when we didn't know how the rocks were moving around. But dedicated scientists got out there and they put up video cameras and various instruments, and they figured out what was happening. And so I know it's frustrating to not know the solution to a mystery, and that's what drives us in many cases, but it also kind of sucks when a mystery is solved, because now it's like not as big of a deal to witness something once the mystery's solved. Again, it's a double-edged sword. It's a curse and a blessing. So anyway, I wanted to address that because it has been such a historic mystery there, and you can see why that I decided not to go there. You know what? I have so many people who listen to this podcast. It's funny because, again, I get to see some of the statistics here, and People all over the world listen to the podcast, and they send me emails, they post things. And so once in a while, I like to at least read an email or two. And I got this email from a listener in California, which of course is where Death Valley is, So her name is Crystal, and the subject of her email, the subject line says giving back. Giving back. And what a nice sentiment that she has here. Listen to this. I'm going to just pretty much read her email verbatim. She says, "Hi Joshua, you are often giving us great pieces of valuable information that you have discovered, and I really appreciate it. Today, I'd like to return the favor by sharing how I often either greatly minimize or even get good out of a bad situation and improve any situation. Interested? Are you interested?" Let's see what she has to say. She says, "When things start going wrong, no matter if it's just a little problem or a huge, oh my God, how are we going to survive this? I have discovered a vital, magical command phrase I use while doing what I need to do to handle the situation. And even in those most frustrating situations where you can't do anything, I think it. But whether you think it or say it just depends on what feels right to you. The phrase is..." Now I have to pause here, folks. I have to pause, create some suspense. Isn't this cool, though, that she's trying to help us all out? Giving back is the subject line of her email. She wants us all to really pay attention to what she's about to share with us because this works for her. So here is wisdom. So whatever you're doing, listen up, okay? Here's what she says. The phrase is, quote, "This will turn out better than expected," end quote. I'm going to repeat that. The phrase is, quote, "This will turn out better than expected," end quote. If I'm not feeling that then by some miracle, and I'm continuing to read her email, of course, by some miracle this will turn out better than expected, well, just, do this over and over for as long as you feel needed. And after doing this for some time, I shorten it to simply better than expected, better than expected, better than expected, with the intention of the whole phrase. I have had amazing things happen by using this simple, magical phrase. I'll even use it for when I just want to make sure a situation I'm going into will turn out well in my favor. It's an easy and powerful piece of magic you can do as often as you like to turn around or at least minimize the bad in a negative situation or maximize the good in any situation. May all your situations turn out better than expected. Wishing you great happiness and many blessings. That's from Crystal in California. You might want to jot that down because, we're so bombarded and we're so distracted. Sometimes you need to just have a note that you post somewhere and you're like, hey, let's try this out. This will turn out better than expected. Or better than expected. I love that word better. I and a lot of other people who study intention and manifestation have said that sometimes when you put a wish down, whether you're using a wishing machine or miraculous prayer board or something, whatever you're using, whatever your technique is, sometimes you should say, I want this or something better. Because why limit yourself? Why limit yourself to simply what you can imagine? Because there may be options that drastically transcend what you are capable of imagining. So you might want to keep that in mind, that you can actually do something or have something come to you or be involved with something that goes way, way beyond what you ever thought. And you know what? I'll give you an example of this. I told you just recently, the piece that featured me here in Las Vegas won an Emmy. Now, when we shot that piece, and it aired, I mean, I watched it and I said, oh yeah, that was great. It kicked ass. It never even entered my mind that that would be considered for an Emmy. Like, that just wasn't on my radar whatsoever. Not, and then when they told me, like, yeah, this won an Emmy, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it just, sometimes things that you cannot even think of happen. And sometimes those are the best things. So don't think like that manifestation always has to be about, I want to create exactly what I envision. Always leave some wiggle room in there, or something better, so that the universe can say, oh, here's some shit you didn't even think about. So as we work on our lives right now in this, troublesome time that we're all going through, and I hope you're keeping up your magical work, bear that in mind, that it's one thing to have an agenda, but open your mind to how this could all turn into something even better than you expected. Thank you again, Crystal, for that and for sharing that with everybody listening all over the world. Here is another email that I want to read to you. And this email comes from Janet in Illinois. She actually wrote me a pretty big, well, it's not that big, but she wrote me a couple of nice paragraphs. I don't want to read the whole thing, but she has been trying to sell a house. Okay. So she said, we had sold the house, but the deal fell through. And it was much lower than we had hoped for anyway. The next day, the Lucky Chip 8 coin arrived. Okay, now, let me pause. You know what I'm talking about here. I told you that there is this legend, this myth, that if you have a wooden chip with the number 8 on it and you carry it with you, good luck will befall you. And I'll get back to that in a minute. So she got one of the lucky chips. The Lucky 8 chip coin arrived the day after we got the news of losing the deal. And that evening, we suddenly got a better offer. She says the Lucky 8 chip was meant just for me. Thank you, Janet, in Illinois, for sending that in. If you don't know exactly what she's talking about, here's the thing. It's true. The legend of the Lucky Chip. All right. If you go to myluckychip.com, then you'll be able to see some of the actual amounts of winnings that I have gotten in Las Vegas casinos next to the Lucky Chip. The Lucky Chip is not just for gambling, though. It is for bringing good fortune in general. And the Lucky Chip is not a product that I have created. It's just a product that has worked for me. And I don't make a penny off of the Lucky Chip, but what I'm telling you is that I talked about how I got one of these lucky chips, which are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, Western North Carolina. And I went out and I started winning like every time I had this lucky chip with me. And so I talked about it on this podcast, and a lot of people were saying, well, I want to get one, I want to get one. But at that time, the lucky chip was only available as like a bulk sales product. So like if you had a gift shop or whatever, you could get some and order them, but you couldn't just go on as an individual on the internet and just order one of these things. But I got so many emails and so many messages from people all over the world saying, how do I get one? How do I get one? How do I get one? I finally said, okay, I don't make 1 red cent off of the lucky chip. But because that it has worked so well for me, I decided I'm going to facilitate the sale of the lucky chip. And so if you go to myluckychip.com, I just got a phone call yesterday, and I'm not sure if it's sold out by today because they're getting close to being sold out. So this, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. This is the last time I'm going to mention it. But if they do have any still that you can buy as an individual, then you have to go to myluckychip.com, myluckychip.com, get one. It will be fulfilled through my processing and shipping service, but I only did that because so many of you wanted to experiment with it, and I love your stories. But I swear to God, my hand on a stack of Bibles, I don't make a penny off of the lucky chip by selling it to you. I just wanted to see if I could help you get it because so many of you want it as an individual. So anyway, they might be sold out already. I know they were getting close. You know, this is a handmade, handcrafted product. So by the time you hear this, if you go to myluckychip.com and there are still any available, then it will let you order. But if you click the button and it says sold out, well, you'll know. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But obviously, you see what happened for Janet there when she got her lucky chip. So that worked out very well for her. And the only reason I even tell you guys about it is because I like to experiment with these things, and I show you what happens to me. And well, you can see what has happened to a lot of people. So this has been a long one, huh? I guess I'm going to have to wrap this up here pretty soon. Oh yeah, here's something I wanted to tell you about. I know that most of you who listen to this show, you listen either through some app like Apple or iHeart or Stitcher or something like that, or you just go directly to the Buzzsprout page and you listen there. But Lauren, my wife, is such a sweet and beautiful person. I have not asked her to do this, that she has decided to start taking this podcast and, as often as possible, post it on YouTube. And she's just been quietly doing this, and I haven't publicized it. Nobody even knows that she's doing it. But some people are used to listening to podcasts on YouTube. So if you are interested in at least having the option to listen to this podcast on YouTube, go to YouTube and just do a search for Joshua P. Warren Daily, and you'll see the channel pop up. There are, I mean, like, nobody knows about it. There's probably like 30 subscribers or whatever. You can put it in quotation marks, Joshua P. Warren Daily, and bring up the YouTube channel and then subscribe to it, because even though right now like nobody knows about it, I think that I might start trying to develop that page a little bit more over time, and start putting more stuff on the Joshua P. Warren Daily YouTube channel. So if you're at all interested in keeping up with what I'm doing through YouTube, please go to youtube.com and do a Joshua P. Warren Daily search. And when you find the channel, you'll see me screaming. You'll see a picture of me screaming like a madman. I'm probably screaming, "Fuck you, Joshua!" That's what I look like. And then you hit the subscribe button. And that way, who knows what crazy things I will do, perhaps, with that channel. Also, speaking of social media, a lot of you don't probably realize that I do have an Instagram page. I'm not that good at keeping it up to date. But if you go to Instagram and do a search for, it's Shadowbox ENT, all one word, because I have a business called Shadowbox Enterprises. Shadowbox ENT or Joshua P. Warren or whatever, you'll probably be able to find me there on Instagram. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to tell you. I talked to Dr. Mulder the other day. He is so slammed that he told me that he wants to stop making the Model X. And we get a lot of orders for the Model X, but it takes him like twice as long to make one of those. The Model X is our portable unit. So if you go to wishingmachineproject.com, on the homepage there, it says, "Need something portable with battery packs? Learn about the new Field X," and then you click that button. He said that he wants to discontinue that, and I said, well, okay, let's go ahead and give everybody one last chance to buy some if they want it. So if you want to do that, this is your last chance. Go to wishingmachineproject.com. Again, on the right side, it'll say "Need something portable with battery packs," and then click and learn about the new Field X, and you'll get that information. So, there's a lot going on. I could actually keep going. I'm not going to, because I have so much more. I have a list of things that I want to share with you and tell you about. Experiment results. I created something that's in my bathroom that I've been experimenting with. And I know that may or may not sound appealing to you, but soon I will be sending out a picture of this thing and telling you about it. And it's got some deep, deep roots in some very, very weird technology. So I have so much stuff to share with you. But for now, here's the best thing you can do. All right. The best thing you can do is just go to joshuapwarren.com. There's no period after the P. Sign up for my free e-newsletter. It takes you 2 seconds. Put your email address in there, hit the button, get a free instant digital good luck charm when you do that. And if you like this podcast, share it with everybody. That's the least you can do for this free podcast, is just send it to people and say, hey, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but listen to this. This guy's not got any collar and no chain. He's calling it the way he sees it. I'm telling the truth. Nobody controls me. Nobody can fire me. I'm self-employed. I'm an independent voice. Tell people about it, and tell them if they go to joshuapwarren.com, check out the Curiosity Shop. You'll find things there that you won't find anywhere else in the world. But also, while you're there, click the link to this podcast. It's called Joshua P. Warren Daily. Relatively speaking, compared to a lot of other podcasts, it's always short. I mean, sometimes I do a podcast that's 5 minutes. This is going to be probably one of the longest ones I've ever done. You never know, but but generally speaking, it's always short. It's always free. It's commercial free. It is completely uncensored, and it is 100% independent. 100% independent. So that is why it's really important for you to let others know about it, because if we let this option for people to do podcast independently die, well, then we're really screwed. You're never going to get it back again. So I hope that you'll do that. I hope that you will tell everybody to please go there, subscribe, and realize that the show is independent. So anyway, lots of new good stuff to come soon. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. And I will talk to you again soon.